Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. With a quorum of members present and the posted time having arrived, I will call the Finance Committee portion of this meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, March 12th, 2024. We do have 7 finance items, and then on the heels of that, we will have a joint item with the Economic Development Committee. So we'll ask that those members join us when we get to that item. We've got, and we may need to put that joint item in the middle. My understanding is that we have some participants who were expecting to log on about 5:30. So if we're in the neighborhood of 5:30 to get those accommodated, we can take them in order. If not, if finance has other items that they'll need to take after, we'll maybe try to slip that joint item in the middle. We'll just see what we have for time on these first ones. So the first item of business on our agenda tonight is the minutes of our previous meeting from 2/27/24, copies of which are in the packets. Does anybody have any revisions or adjustments they need for the minutes? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes. Motion from Watson. Is there a second? Second by Lukens. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. That item carries. Item 2 is discussion and possible action on acceptance of community enhancement grant for a therapy dog. And so you'll see in the packet materials that were provided from the police department that our beloved therapy dog Badge is retiring soon. In fact, I think he's here tonight even in attendance. And so in the packet, you have some documentation for the grant for a new therapy animal to replace him. Does anyone have questions on that item? Questions that you would like to ask of the police department? I don't know that you can necessarily ask Badge because he won't speak to us, but he's here. So, but does anyone have any questions on that item? Go ahead, Sarah.
So is Badge here?
I think he's here, isn't he? He's back there.
Is he a good dog? I just want to know.
He's a good guy.
He's a good boy. Aw. Hey, Badge. Has he?
See, he's a good
how
boy.
long has he served?
It's been 6 years.
6 years. Awesome. I just wanted to see the dog. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
We don't often get canine attendees at our meetings, so we love it when they come. So, especially when these items directly affect them.
Yeah. And I would say that Officer Nick Stetzer probably was not the inventor of this idea, but he was certainly an early adopter of it. I'm personally not aware of any other law enforcement officer in the state of Wisconsin that had a partner like his by his side up until the point that Nick introduced it to us. And we thought it was kind of an unusual idea that we probably weren't crazy about at the beginning. But the successes that Nick has had with Badge have been profound, to the point where we added one like in the packet to Wausau West High School, also to the Victim Resource Unit and the CART team and things like that. So a lot of successes.
Well, and I see NCHC has one also now.
Yeah.
So 3 circulating in the community, which is great. Sarah, and then Carol.
So I just have to say, I think it's a brilliant idea, and I'm really happy that we're getting another grant to continue this. Because I was actually at a dog park over the weekend, and there was like 5 young late teen girls there. I'm like, oh, which ones are your dogs? They're like, none. These are our therapy. So I think it's very valuable because they just come there and to pet the dogs, and it's very relaxing. So I think it's amazing. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, they've been able to actually diffuse some pretty serious situations in the schools as well with the 2 dogs. So between those 2, they've really got some great results for us, Theo and Badge. So with that, it looks like the action they're requesting from us is a motion to accept the grant. Oh, Carol, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. I just wanted to say I can personally attest to the work that Badge has done. We're all going to miss him. I'm in a school within Wausau East, and Nick, the work you've done, and I have seen the effects firsthand. Our principal also has a dog, but who isn't there as much as Badge, but I've seen the effects on students firsthand, and I can't say enough about it, about how much the dogs can be a help in, calming a situation. And Nick, all of your work, kudos to you and thank you, because it's hard saying goodbye to that we won't be seeing Badge at school. Thank you.
Well, he may just have to visit socially once in a while. But it does look like in the packet materials, and I think it bears repeating publicly so that citizens that watch our meetings can know that during the time that Badge was serving, just in a couple years of those service years, therapy or mental health calls to the facility decreased by nearly 2/3. So I think that is worth recognizing out in the community because there's an impact to be made, and we know that there are more mental health concerns than ever. So when we have those tools in our toolbox, very helpful for us. So does,
I have a question.
sure, go ahead.
Just for public record, so this replacement grant will provide the dog again for Wausau East? They'll work there with Nick?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Do we have a motion to accept the grant? Motion from Watson. Is there a second? Second from Dinny. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And we'll wish Badge luck in his future retirement. Okay, so that then brings us to item number 3, which is discussion and possible action to increase the annual reimbursement for law enforcement training. And so Chief Barnes is on his way up to talk about this with us. You've got some information in the packets about that, but we'll welcome the chief.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Probably a long time coming. For as long as I can recall, the state would reimburse each department for each individual law enforcement officer that attained their 24 hours of annual training, $160 per officer. Within law enforcement circles, there was a bit of an eye roll because the actual cost to train law enforcement officers is so much more than that. And as that cost goes up, so do the challenges in regards to training. So the governor put in the 2020, I think 2023 budget to double that amount to $320 per officer. And then just recently, the legislature put the mechanism in place in order to reimburse us the money. So one, the money had to be there, and then the legislature had to create that vehicle, which they did and was signed by the governor. So there's $12,500 additionally available to our department. I think the spirit behind that was to be able to provide more training than we were able to provide before. What I'm asking this committee to do and the council is to make a budget adjustment for us so that our training budget goes up by $12,500, that amount of that revenue,
Sure.
so we can use that to train our staff.
Sure. Okay, and yep, we've been making some of those adjustments with shared revenue since we got the increase. So anybody have any questions about that? I mean, that really allows the department then to collect and take advantage of that new funding. Do we have a motion to approve an adjustment to the training budget to allow for the new funds? Motion by Lukens, is there a second? Second from Martins. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, so item number 4 is discussion and possible action regarding ARPA funding request and related budget modification for police department parking lot perimeter fence. You will recall, and I think in a couple of our budget workshops, we had looked at this particular project in CIP a couple times. They're looking to fence the parking lot because when there is access and visibility to the parking lot where officers are parking their personal vehicles, people who have disagreements with those individuals probably shouldn't know what they drive in their personal life. So we'll welcome Lieutenant Lopez Serrao up to talk to us about the fence. So welcome.
Thank you. Like you said, this is something that we've brought up a few different times, and we're bringing it up again with the opportunity with some of the funding availability. It's a still continued concern from our officers that they bring up regularly to the command staff about people coming into the parking lot and confronting them. And, you know, as police officers, we're all equipped and prepared generally when we're out in the community to resolve and deal with people that confront us. We expect that in our profession. The hard part is when we are in our parking lot and we're coming and going from our personal vehicles, we're not in uniform yet. Sometimes we're digging around in our car, doing an inspection, things like that, and people come confront us. We had a particular incident where an officer, they were fresh out of briefing, they were doing a squad inspection, and a man walked up to them and was holding a sharp object in their hand. They asked him what was going on. He started to scream at the officer. he then started slicing his own neck. And they
Wow.
had to deal with that, and that was right in our squad parking area. And I think we've had other issues where people have confronted officers, come in and started yelling at us, filming us. And then there's examples across the state where police officers have been attacked. I put one in the packet where an Appleton officer was walking out their back door, headed into their squad parking area where a man was hiding and waiting, and rushed at the officer and started stabbing him multiple times. And this officer had nothing to do with the man. He just was walking out the back door. So this is something that is still a continued concern for our officers, mostly because of the proximity of our department to the downtown area. There's a lot of availability for people walking around. And I think it'll be a continued concern if we don't find some resolutions. So the project, there's 3 different requests in here, but it's really one project. So what I did is I broke it up into a couple different options. Option 1 is we use chain link fencing, black chain link fencing around the entire parking lot. The issue with that is our ordinance currently doesn't allow for that because our parking lot faces streets and chain link fencing is not allowed on that. So if we were going to go with that option, we would need to seek a variance to get that passed. Option 2 is using ornamental fencing along the Grand Avenue side, but then chain link fencing along the Seymour and Henrietta Street sides. In speaking with planning, that would also not be supported by ordinance because Henrietta and Seymour are on street-facing sides. My, I guess, counter to that is that's kind of our back and side yard, if you're thinking of it in a yard sense. So I would try to get a variance to allow for black chain link on those sides to keep the cost down. Option 3 is we use ornamental fencing along all 3 sides, which is permitted by ordinance. But there's obviously a higher cost associated with that. So I put those 3 different options in there, some background information. I put some examples from other police departments that are comparable to us. In that list, I put something about in-city or something, and that's kind of, I looked at that police department and how it's compared to ours. Is it in a city environment where it's kind of downtown, or is it tucked away in an industrial park or something like that where people aren't walking around the building very frequently? So that's the information I have. Do you have any questions?
Okay, does anyone have any questions? It looks like the 3 options range in price from $45,000 to $75,000 to $210,000 for the ornamental all the way around. And so knowing that if we went with that option 2, assuming that we could get a variance from plan, you said that chain link option on the 2 sides would be black, not silver?
Correct.
Okay, so it would match the ornamental that's on the front?
Yes, so the proposal would be ornamental along Grand Avenue, chain link on the other 2 sides with gates for the driveway and a pedestrian gate, kind of where our current flagpole is. One of the gates would be a manual gate, so there is the ability potentially that, let's say there's a big event that's going to be hosted at our police department, we could go simply just open up those gates to make the parking lot at night available for an event. Because I know that's a concern about what kind of public parking would be available. During the day, during business hours, there essentially isn't any parking available in that lot for the public. There is the small lot on the Seymour Street side that's publicly available, but between our vehicles, our police vehicles, our employee vehicles, and fire department employee vehicles, the big lot over there is essentially full during
It's
the
full.
day.
So you're looking at, as far as gate access, some type of key card controlled gate, or?
Yeah, so the current proposal would be that we could key card to get into the gate, and then there would be exit loops in the pavement leaving so that when you pull up to the gate, it opens.
It would open, sure.
There would be, you can adjust the speeds to it, but it would be fast enough that we could easily get out quickly.
Before other people slip in?
Correct.
Before- okay.
And then there's a design in here from engineering that's not necessarily exact. There's a few adjustments that need to be made based off of what planning told us about
Yeah.
visual triangles and things like that.
I think we have something similar in play at the airport for access to the back area, so.
Oh, okay.
That makes some sense. I guess, committee members, do you have any questions for Lieutenant Lopez Serrao about this item? Doug, go
Quick
ahead.
question. Well, currently, it doesn't appear that there's any segregation of civilians parking in there, so that people do currently park in there, right? If there's space.
If there's space, they'll come park in there. We don't want them to, because typically the only slots or spaces that are open during the day are the spaces where the squad cars belong and they're out patrolling. And then sometimes they come back to park in a spot and there's no spot available for them.
Yep. So with that, I mean, like any other ARPA request, we would rank and score this. Even though it's broken up into 3 different price points, I think we can rank it as a project. I mean, do we want fencing? Yes or no, and then decide at which level I think is appropriate. So if we email out a score sheet for that item, I think we had another one that we were going to score for this time, but we didn't get the sheet out. So
Right.
we'll be scoring that and this then for the 26th.
Yes, and I guess I thought about sending out your score sheet and thought, we've also included, based on discussions that we had at the last meeting, all of our deferred capital projects, which this was on that list as deferred, because it was submitted as part of the 2024 capital projects, and it didn't get funded. And so we might, in my mind, I thought, we'll just rank all of them at the same time.
I think that makes some
So that it's a little
sense.
bit more competitive then.
Well, and then we can get a holistic look at the work that we have waiting.
Yep.
That we've not been able to accomplish. So
That's what I
think,
thought,
yeah,
too.
if you want to send that out as a packet, then we could score
Will do.
those for next time.
Yep.
And, okay, so we'll get that scored then, and then go through those results then at our next meeting on the 26th of March. So, any other questions? Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, not so much a question, but a concern about the aesthetics of the fencing, I guess, because the police department is in my district. But so I'll be engaging with our neighborhood group
Okay,
to see what their opinions are on it at our April meeting. So I'll be scoring this, pending what the neighborhood says.
sure. Well, and I think it would be interesting for us to get that feedback also, so maybe
Yeah.
note that and bring it back for next time, because I think that's of value to the rest of us too.
Yep.
To know what they say.
Yeah, and they meet at the first Monday of April, so it's
Perfect.
I've got it on their agenda.
Okay.
I think too, the fence is going to last a long, long time. And, I think it's hard when the city asks for a variance for our own rules. It doesn't seem quite right. So I guess I would advocate, even though it's more expensive, to go with a fence that meets our code.
Well, that and from a durability standpoint, I think you're right on the longevity. I mean, that similar ornamental fencing, I think, is kind of what encircles Marathon Park.
Could I
It's way
just
more
speak-
robust.
Can I
Yeah,
speak
go
to
ahead.
that?
Sure.
I think from the police department's standpoint, we would totally agree with that. Obviously, we think it looks better. We think it's more secure. I mean, there's nothing that's going to prevent a person who really wants to get in there from getting in there. But that's probably the best option. The reason we threw in the chain link option is because, ideally, at the end of the day, we just want to prevent people from just walking through there, driving in there, and a chain link fence would do that. So we're like, all right, well, this is the bare bones cost that would suffice to do what we need it to do. And then this is probably what follows ordinance and what we would desire, but we're willing to do this to
Right.
get it done, so.
Well, and I think if we took an in-between measure, we should, if we do that, we should do it with the mindset that eventually we know that based on longevity, that inferior quality material would ultimately need to be replaced and then add to the total cost of the fencing versus maybe getting it right the first time. So, but yeah, we'll definitely rank it with those concerns in mind. Anything else anyone has in terms of questions? Okay, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
So we'll have lots of things to score for next time then. Okay, so then we have two items that are kind of related, similar in content. Discussion and possible action. The first one is discussion and possible action on alleged claim for recovery of unlawful tax. And the petitioner there is the Leoki Woodson Art Museum at 601 North 12th Street. And so you've read some material in your packets about this item. Now, what we normally do with these is we always seek the counsel of the city assessor and the city attorney as far as what course of action we should take. Most always, unless there is a known error on the part of the assessment, the procedure is that we typically decline these, and that allows another objection process to take or to present itself to that person or to that petitioner. I guess, do any of you have questions on this item? And I guess, Rick, if you'd like to come up maybe and just walk us through this one, is your recommendation on this one that we would disallow this claim so that the other process could start?
Yes, that is our recommendation,
Okay.
to disallow it. We had a building permit that was issued in 2022. During, also in 2022, they had combined 2 vacant parcels into a new parcel. That itself triggers that property to become taxable on the assessment roll unless the taxpayer files an exemption request. No exemption request was filed, so therefore the assessment is legit and statutory.
Okay. And so going forward in the future, if they'd like to reapply for exemption, they would just follow that process to re-request the exemption and go through the process of earning one, correct?
That's correct. Every year, the exemption requests are due on March 1st,
Okay.
and they have the ability every year.
Okay, so that possibility may open up in the future then also for them as the petitioner. Okay, so with that, go ahead, Sarah.
So if we want to disallow this, we would still vote in the affirmative and then just.
And then all vote no, right? The motion would be in the positive, and then we would all vote no.
So I would move to.
Okay,
Approve.
so let's make a motion then to approve the alleged claim for recovery of unlawful tax. Do we have a second to get the motion on the floor in the affirmative? Motion from, or a second from Lukens. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor of allowing the claim signify by saying aye. Members opposed, say no.
No.
No. So we'll let the record show that has failed unanimously. Same situation on item 6. Discussion and possible action on alleged claim for recovery of unlawful tax from the Vistas at Greenwood Hills subdivision, Outlot 1 and 3115 Town Line Road. And you'll see some documents in the packets on that one as well. This one, actually, I think we've also had some back and forth with the same owner about roads, whether the roads are public or private or whatever. And so I think that still is an unresolved issue. But Rick, I guess if you want to just walk us through this one, is your recommendation on this one the same, that we would disallow and then afford them the other process?
Yes, this is our recommendation that you would disallow the claim.
Okay. Does anyone have questions for Rick on this one? Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, so this is slightly different than the readying rule?
That's correct. This is nothing to do with the reading rule.
Okay. No questions, Sarah?
I'd move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Lukens. That motion's in the affirmative. So members in favor of allowing the claim signify by saying aye. Members opposed, vote no.
No.
No. We'll let the record show that one also has failed unanimously. Then we've got item number 7 is discussion and possible action regarding ARPA funding requests and related budget modification for deferred capital projects. And I guess, Mary Ann, did you want to walk us through this one a little bit? We kind of started to talk about it.
We did, and, we didn't have the actual list in front of us when we had our discussions last week. And I thought, given that we've talked about the fact that we do want to make sure and spend all of our ARPA dollars, and, we've made a huge commitment to water and sewer projects, as well as, all of the other types of projects that have come along. But we did defer quite a few projects as part of the capital plan as we were doing our 2024 budget. And there were some that were a bit concerning because, roofs, for example, are very important to making sure you maintain the integrity of a building. And we did defer multiple roofs. One, we only did part of it, again, trying to save money. And then, through those discussions, we deferred all playground equipment in '24 and actually deferred a tennis court, which will now have to be closed because it's in such bad condition. So, and this is in the ranking that the CIP committee, and then I guess council chambers, which ranked highest. We've continued to experience problems with video and room controls. So, just adding that to the mix, it doesn't have to be decided on now, but it might be something that you'd like to consider again, it takes time to bid these things out and get them in the plan.
Right, and this, though, is, we would rank this alongside of the fence, right? that
Yep,
we just heard
and the
about.
fence was in here under parking lot security improvements, the
Okay.
250.
Yep,
So it was part of that.
Pick that up in there. And then any of the other ARPA projects that we also put a pin in and
Sure.
didn't fund from before, should we be rescoring that as
We
well?
can do that.
Against this list?
Sure.
I guess, Sarah?
So this is in the order that the CIP committee had them, right?
Yes.
And then the parking lot improvements, is that include the 210, the most for the project?
Yes.
Because there were three options,
Yep.
option 1, 2, 3. So
Yeah,
what's
so the 250 was,
that one?
Yeah.
Was the
So it's
ornamental fence the
so
whole
it'd
way?
be- It's like 40 Gs more than it would actually be?
yeah.
Okay. And then I had one more question. But with the ones that we put a pin in, then we would, are they going to actually have little excerpts about these just in case?
Yeah, the
not-
form for CIP, it looks very similar to ARPA, so
Okay.
I can just include those.
Okay.
It'll be almost identical.
Okay, awesome.
Yep,
Thank
the,
you.
the request form is, and the score matrix is similar as well.
It is.
It asks a few different questions, but by and large, it's not a whole lot different than what we've been using.
Yeah.
So,
And I think, when I looked at the projects that were unfunded, there were very few of them that we didn't find alternate funding for. Or that we, are already completed with
Right.
that alternate funding. So I can definitely include those, and I'll include the actual application as well. So you'll have everything.
right, and then same thing with those, I guess. If we believe that we have alternative funds lined up already, I think that would influence our scoring. If
Sure.
we know that we have determined that we've got either project savings from other areas or alternative funding, or
Okay.
maybe surplus funding or something that would reduce the need for ARPA.
Okay.
And then maybe adjust down the amount of ARPA that's really necessary versus the total project cost. Because,
Okay.
if something needs $10,000, it's a whole lot different than if it needs 100, I guess,
Sure.
So let's go Sarah, Carol, and then Doug.
So this was the other question I had. I know last packet you had a really nice spreadsheet with all of the project spend downs and the ones that weren't. Could you include that in it with,
Yes.
and then also like what we have left?
Yep.
Just because I know it's in a lot of packets, but sometimes it's having it
Oh,
in
yeah.
one table.
For sure.
Because what we have left compared to what could be spent in the like the 1.3, is that like a lot more than what we have left? I can't remember.
It's less.
Less. So we still have more than 1.3.
Yes, my recollection is we have 1.6 that never was committed to, and then we have several projects that are returning funds. So I can add those, and we do have the investment income, so I can add
cool.
A
Yeah.
figure for that, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I had one last question.
Go ahead.
I had it and then it went out. Okay, if I think of it, I'll raise my hand.
Okay, sounds good. Carol?
Thank you. I agree. All of that would be really helpful for me too, a recap on all of that. The one question I had is the Riverside parking lot reconstruction. Just with all of the different, everything we've been doing with Riverside Park, is that something, I know further testing, is that anything that's impacted by that or not?
Or is it
Tom
in a-
is shaking his head.
The parking lot?
Well,
don't
is it in
know.
a different spot? I mean, we've done a bunch of equipment upgrades to that park as well. I think if there's no relationship between the two areas, like the one area won't be disturbed by the work of the other area, you hate to put
Right.
in new asphalt and then it gets destroyed from heavy equipment. But if they're in two separate sections, I think that is easier for us
That's
to
what I just-
absorb. Tom?
Thank you. Yes, they are in two distinct areas,
Okay.
and the contamination area at hand is in the southwest corner of the park. And just so you know, the parking lot has been in, I think, poor shape for
Yeah.
quite a while, and Miss Polly has brought this up at some meetings, and it's in such bad shape it can routinely flood. It's pretty bad there. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure because I know we had something else come up with that at a meeting, so I
Sure.
just wanted to keep it clear in my head. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll rank that, and we'll also then account for the 1.6 that was never committed, the interest income and the savings from the originally approved ARPA projects. That'll give us a sum to work with as we're doing our scoring. Doug, did you have a comment yet? Okay. Sarah?
I finally remembered. Okay, so you were mentioning that these could still be bid out in time to spend down, right?
Right.
What are average lengths of the bidding time, like, do you think?
That'd
Or
be a good
it varies-
question for
it-
Eric.
it varies
Because
by
I
project?
think, most of these, I don't know, would fall under the public construction, which is different rules, but Eric will know the answer.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you. So, I mean, the ones that actually have to be designed, we'll probably need a couple months to put those together. Actual bidding takes about a month, about 4 weeks, and then to get contracts in place is probably another month. So, looking at 4 to 5 months.
Okay.
Well, and so if we would score up a number of these, we were kind of the mind that we were thinking that we probably are going to need to be a little bit stressed about all this come August if we don't have stuff nailed down. So, I think if, coming into the spring and the summer, if, depending on how this stuff scores, if that process could take flight, I think we'd feel a whole lot better in the home stretch of this whole thing of getting those funds at least encumbered and contracts ready, right?
Right.
Okay.
I think the other thing too is if you want to do larger projects as well, and I've talked with our engineering about this as well, we're probably going to need to know before June
Okay.
in order for us to get projects out this year
Yeah,
and
'cause
actually
summer's
get
such a
contracts.
busy time
Yes.
anyhow for you guys.
Well, that,
Yeah.
and then you, depending on what it is, you run out of season if you get too far into the fall, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
okay,
Okay,
All
just
right.
as a timeline, so.
that is helpful. Sarah?
And we wouldn't have problems like getting bids or doing that process in the winter. Like, I know you mentioned some of them, like it's more ideal in the summer, but like getting, because we just have to have contracts
Right.
confirmed, right? They
Right.
don't have to be done. So getting them done in like the winter months isn't,
Yeah,
people to respond to
it's
stuff?
not a problem. I mean, I think that as we get into design and start looking at bidding, depending on when that happens, maybe our construction timeline will actually be in '25. It won't be in '24, right? So, but I think we just need to get it bid and contracts executed
and it's
before
not
the
like
end
they
of the
don't
year.
respond during the winter.
Right.
Right.
And so if we
Right,
would end
that's
up
correct.
pushing the start date to the spring or summer of next year.
Right.
We would still
Yep.
require completion, though, before the deadline on the ARPA.
26, yeah.
26, so,
Mm-hmm.
is it the end of 26? Okay, so we do have a little bit of flexibility there on the timeline, too. Okay. Anybody else have additional questions on that stuff? If not, we'll watch our emails for a big packet of score sheets.
Okay.
So, and we'll try to get those, when would you want them back? Probably the Friday before the meeting? Or the Thursday before the meeting? So you have time
I
to,
think Friday, or, I think even Monday. It doesn't take us long to throw that together, so I think Monday would be fine.
okay. So the 25th,
Yeah.
okay?
And you don't have to make a decision at the next meeting. You can debate it some more and
Sure.
then make it a decision at the following meeting. There, it's good that we're starting early because then we don't have to rush.
Right, absolutely. Okay, so we'll go for the Monday, March 25th on email and in the score sheets. And I guess if we can get through them sooner and get them in sooner, all the better,
Right.
but,
And even if you picked like your top three and you said, yes, we're going to commit to the top three and then, wait for, I don't know what, but.
well, sure. But yeah, I mean, even if we get them ranked in a new priority order,
Yeah.
we could then, like we do with CIP, draw a line where we want to stop the flow of the money, and then at least get to maybe some of the stuff that's worse, knowing that.
Sure.
Because a lot of this stuff, if it doesn't get funded, we're going to see it on CIP this summer. We just know we will.
Yeah.
Because the maintenance doesn't seem to ever go away. So, okay, so we have that item. And so we don't have to act on that one today. The next item we have is our joint item. So if the Economic Development Committee members would like to join us up here, we can get to our last item. And we've allowed a decent amount of time. We've got about 45 minutes here to work through our stuff with Gorman. We do have Ellers on WebEx.
Yeah.
Okay,
Hi. So Tuesday, March 12th, 2024, I'll call the ED committee meeting to order. Quorum of members is present. So we'll go on and start the first item.
okay. So our joint item is discussion and possible action regarding the purchase and development agreement with Gorman and Company LLC and Riverview Lofts Wausau LLC for a 56-unit affordable multifamily housing project at 415 South First Avenue. So Who would like to start us off on this one? We do have some materials in the packet. We could bring Randy up, and he can talk to us about this one.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm just going to get us started tonight, and I'll come back a little bit later. Want to introduce, this is an affordable housing project that the city's been working on for some time. It's kind of interesting thinking back today. One of the first things I was doing when I was hired at the city was reviewing the RFP responses to this proposal, and I've been here for a while now.
Right?
I'm going to turn it over to Ted Mackham from Gorman and Company in Riverview Lots Wausau,
Okay.
just to give a high-level introduction of the project, then we'll come back and talk about some of the key factors in our agreement.
Sounds good. Welcome back, Ted.
Hi, thank you so much. Ted Mackham, the Wisconsin Market President for Gorman and Company. Love Wausau, another project that we're working on after we completed the landmark downtown. This is a new build construction, actually very challenging site. I think once we get it done, and be honest with you, I was just driving here past it, coming to this meeting, and I was like, how are we fitting this building on this site? But we've checked it a million times, geotech-wise, survey-wise. We're getting some land from WPS to get a little closer to the river. And I think we've come up with a fantastic plan, 56 units, all underground parking. I really think it's going to be just fantastic when it's all done. Really be a great gateway into the downtown on Stewart Avenue. And, this project really, in the land of construction inflation and interest rate inflation, is surviving because the city and Gorman worked together to get a $1.75 million ARPA grant, which we thought, I would say at the time, was sufficient to do everything we needed to do. And now when we come up with interest rates and construction inflation, we now have a capital stack that looks the way it does. And it's very close, but it had to have a little tweak, which is, I think, why we're here tonight with this development agreement. But I do believe that this will be a great addition to downtown, both on the architectural side and the planning side and for the affordable housing side. So any questions you guys have, I'm here.
Does anybody have questions for Ted? I think it's going to be exciting to see this project take flight. I know they've waited a long time for their WHEDA credits to
right.
get that project to go, and on the second round, they were able to get them, so that's huge, and it really fills a need here. Does anybody have any questions for Ted at all? If not, on the Finance Committee side, do we have a motion to approve the item? We have a motion from Martins and a second by Watson. Further discussion on the item? If not, members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. That item carries for Finance.
Okay. So for economic development, the committee members have any questions or comments? Any other questions for Randy or? Yeah, Alder Hinkie.
Yeah, thanks. I'll just say we had our community meeting last night, and there were questions about when this is going to get going. So it's really encouraging to
You want me to talk on the schedule?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
sure.
Sure.
Yeah,
if you don't mind, maybe a little bit on to that.
Yeah,
That'd
I
be great.
apologize. I didn't actually say that in my remarks. So our scheduled closing is in July. And so that we're on track for that right now. The thing that put us a little bit behind, we were thinking of an earlier start, but because of the access to our underground parking was a little challenging because of the grades of the site, we had to get some lands that were from WPS that were closer to the river, and that had to go through a process that's called FERCA or something with WPS, right? Am I getting that right? Some acronym, and we got through that process, we got approvals, and so now we're ready to go. So that is a firm date of like 7/15, July 15th. And then there would be it's actually quite a challenging construction. So it's about a 17-month construction cycle. So we'll be done 12/31/2025, leasing up probably in December, and then from in 2026.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, additional questions? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Alder Hinkie, do you have anything?
No, that's all.
Okay. Alder Killian.
Thank you. And it was said, I think, months ago that reducing the price to $1 somehow helps the application score. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, thank you for remembering that, actually. So we had reduced the price to $1, and then we were paying for the demo of the building that was there. And the reason we had to do it for $1 is because the Federal Home Loan Bank has a gap financing mechanism. It's actually out of Chicago, the Federal Home Loan Bank, which provides gap financing for affordable projects. And one a big point getter is if the land is donated by the municipality. And so the dollar allowed us to qualify for those 5 points, which allowed us to be competitive, and we got the grant, actually. We were actually successful. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a big gap financing component.
My pleasure. Had it not been changed from for scoring purposes, would Gorman have been inclined to pay a more reasonable price than $1?
Well, we would have lost $1 million of financing because it allowed it to be competitive with that donation. It gave us 5 points, which allowed us to get the grant. So if we wouldn't have had that donation, we probably wouldn't be talking here today because we'd be $1 million short.
Oh, thank you
that's
for
why
that.
that partnership with the city is so fantastic on this project.
Yes, excellent. Thank you. I would say that I think this is a great project, really positive, and I think the community is looking forward to truly affordable at rates that correspond to incomes of the residents. So I think this is really great. That being said, I ran on not selling city-owned property for $1 anymore. I've stuck to that. It's what I've told my constituency. It's what they've told me. So I'll just say two things. I think this is great, and I hope it goes very well. The second thing is I gave my word, and I'll keep it. And in cases like this, where there may be scoring requirements, perhaps those are extraordinary circumstances, but in recent meetings, we've covered various things, including property sales, which we'll cover again this evening. And I think that the city has been bleeding revenue opportunities to the point of becoming kind of a fiscal hemophiliac. So I hope this passes tonight, but I hope in the future that the city revisits the sale of city-owned property for $1 in case it is truly an extraordinary situation. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions from the Economic Development Committee? All right, do I have a motion? Alder?
I'll move.
Okay,
I'll move to approve.
thank you. Trying to get back to the motion. So we have a motion by Alder Henke to approve the purchase and development agreement. Is there a second? Alder Lukens. Any other questions, discussion from the committee? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Okay, 4-1, passes.
Okay,
Is that it?
that is that's
Wow.
it for our joint items. So
Is there a motion to
I'll move to adjourn.
adjourn? Okay, second? Okay, Alder Killian, all those in favor say aye.
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 All right, ED's adjourned.
Okay, and so we also have come to the end of the finance agenda much faster than we expected. I really figured we would need much more time for the unlawful tax items, but that actually went very efficiently. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn also from finance. Motion from Watson, is there a second? Second by Lukens. Further discussion? There never is. Members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No one's ever opposed to adjournment either. So finance will stand adjourned. Common Council will convene in this chamber at 6:30. Thank you, everyone.